Today's video is brought to you by Magellan TV. Magellan TV is an amazing hub of documentaries and has the richest and most varied content that specializes in history. There are a ton of documentaries we could have shown you extracts for, but we loved The Day When Roosevelt Chose War from the series The Day When Pivotal Moments of World War II. This great documentary goes into detail on the relations between US and Japan on the run-up to Pearl Harbor, looking at why Roosevelt tried to stay away from the war as much as he could, and in the end, how he had to declare it. Magellan TV's mission is to tell the great stories that have shaped humanity, and Magellan has over 3,000 documentaries to choose from, including a bunch in 4K, with new ones added each week. Magellan TV works on any device or connected TV, and especially for Yarn Hub viewers, you can get 1 month for free. So if you are passionate about history and would like to support the channel, then please click the link below and take a look at their outstanding content. It's the morning of December the 7th, 1941. It's an average day. The palm trees sway in the warm breeze. The sea is a beautiful blue. In fact, the local paper, Paradise of the Pacific, had just proclaimed Hawaii a world of happiness in an ocean of peace. The volcanic island of Oahu was once an important harbour for whaling ships that filled the bay as far as the eye could see. Today it is again filled, but this time with ships that hunted different prey. Tethered at the US naval base in the idyllic Pearl Harbor are battleships from the United States' vaunted Pacific Fleet, and they bob peacefully while thousands of sailors, officers and airmen are going about their daily routines, oblivious to the impending date which will live in infamy. Meanwhile, just a few hundred miles away off the coast of Oahu, 6 Japanese Imperial Navy aircraft carriers turn into the wind. On their decks, hundreds of fighters, torpedo planes and dive bombers await the final go-ahead under the deafening drone of powerful radial engines. Then one by one, the first wave of more than 180 aircraft, led by Commander Mitsuo Fuchida, thunder skyward, ease into formation and then turn towards their target. These aviators are some of Japan's finest pilots, and in contrast to all the press of 1941, they are first class and devoted to the cause. Pilots and rear gunners are straining their eyes and turning their heads, looking for any sign of enemy sea or air patrols, as Japanese command cannot believe that their strike fleet has managed to sail 3,500 miles without being detected. There's never been anything remotely like it in the history of warfare. The lead pilots spot land and assume their attack positions around 7:30 a.m. 23 minutes later, with his bomber now above the unsuspecting American ships moored in pairs along Pearl Harbor's battleship row, Commander Mitsuo Fuchida breaks radio silence and shouts, "Tora! Tora! Tora!" the coded message informing the Japanese fleet that they have caught the Americans by surprise. Below deck of the 33,000-ton Colorado-class battleship, the USS West Virginia, 22-year-old mess attendant 3rd class Doris Miller is doing one of the most menial tasks of washing the uniforms for the ship's officers. Oblivious to what is happening above, it's just another boring day, business as usual, until a massive explosion shatters the mind-numbing silence. Unsure of the blast's origin, Miller instinctively rushes towards his battle station in the ship's magazine, a colossal armored bunker chock full of thousands of tons of ordnance and high explosives. He pushes through the chaos of choked corridors and frantic sailors scrambling to and fro. Arriving at the magazine, Miller finds it flooded and impassable. Barking commands above the din, the ship's communication officer, Lieutenant Commander Dwyer C. Johnson, orders him to the signal deck. Finding Captain Mervyn Sharp Bennion mortally wounded, Miller, who is also the ship's heavyweight boxing champion, is ordered to lift his dying captain and carry him to an area of relative safety behind the conning tower, near the anti-aircraft guns along the ship's port side, while overhead all the while the Japanese planes roar, dive, strafe and release their lethal payloads with accuracy and destruction. By this time, the ship had been hit multiple times by both bombs and torpedoes, and as a result, it is listing dangerously to port, putting nearly half of its guns out of action. But all hope is not lost because the starboard guns are undamaged and ready and waiting. Miller runs towards the guns. Finding an officer there, he wrestles the huge bouts of .50 caliber ammo into a Browning machine gun as the officer blasts away at the airborne invaders. Then, lacking proper training and without orders, and brimming with fury, rage and revenge, while fires rage all around him, Miller abandons the gun and moves to an unmanned Browning nearby to join the fight in a far more active role. Aiming and depressing the trigger and hoping for the best, the trusty Browning roars to life, sending a hail of supersonic bullets out of its flaming barrel towards the incoming attackers. Like a man possessed, Miller fires away relentlessly as streams of empty shells pour from the gun, until out of ammo, the smouldering gun finally falls silent. One of the officers later wrote, "Miller, who was not supposed to handle anything deadlier than a swab, manned a machine gun, blazing away as though he had fired one all his life. As he did so, his unusually impassive face bore the deadly smile of a berserk Viking." The battle is getting steadily worse, and the once mighty West Virginia isn't just listing, it's sinking. And word arrives that Captain Bennion is dead. With her keel settling onto the harbour floor, it's only a matter of time before the ship rolls over. With nothing left to do, the senior officer gives the order to abandon ship. On the bridge, Miller and the last few holdouts make their way through the carnage to the boat deck below. As the ship sinks, Miller helps pull wounded sailors from the burning water, unquestionably saving the lives of a number of men. Doris Miller was one of the last 3 men to leave the West Virginia. He and his shipmates swim the murderous 300 or 400 yards to shore, avoiding patches of flaming oil from the battleship Arizona and strafing from the Japanese planes. He later told his brother that, with those bullets spattering all around me, it was by the grace of God that I never got a scratch. Even then, once ashore, Miller helped scores of injured sailors to safety. Of the West Virginia's 1,500 plus crewmen, more than 100 were lost on the morning of December the 7th. Elements within the Navy lobbied against Miller receiving the Medal of Honor, but thanks largely to President Roosevelt, he was awarded the Navy Cross by Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, Commander-in-Chief, Pacific Fleet, in a ceremony aboard the aircraft carrier Enterprise anchored in Pearl Harbor. In his speech, Nimitz said, "This marks the first time in this conflict that such high tribute has been made in the Pacific Fleet to a member of his race, and I'm sure that the future will see others similarly honored for brave acts." His portrait appeared in a 1943 Navy recruiting poster under the words, "Above and Beyond the Call of Duty." Miller was assigned to the carrier USS Liscombe Bay to support planned marine landings at Tarawa and Mackin. While on board, he wrote to his mother asking her to save a place for him at the table, because he was sure he'd be home for Thanksgiving in November of 1945. But on the morning of November the 24th, 1943, the Liscombe Bay was struck by a torpedo, and the ship's magazine exploded, and Doris Miller was one of the men to fall on that day. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel and please watch more videos of ours. Thank you.